A Disney mascot followed me home. I never thought I'd be in bed with him spooning me. I can't believe it led to that, but it's true. But to be honest, I liked it. When I was young, it was every kid's dream to go to Disneyland, and the summer holidays were coming up, so every kid was asking their parents to take them, and I was one of them. I was close to giving up on the dream of going to the Magic Kingdom until they pulled me aside before the end of the school term. "We're very proud of you. So we saved some money aside, and we're taking you to Disneyland." It was everything any kid could wish for. It had cost them a pretty penny for the whole trip, and one memory stands out to me, which is the reason why I'm writing this. We were at the gift shop, and they were picking up various merchandise and suggesting we buy it as a souvenir. I kept going back to an intricate glass figurine of a beautiful Disney character. The figure cost around €120, which was a lot for the time, way too much for my parents. We left without buying anything, and I was left with no souvenir, or so they thought. What they didn't know is that later that day, I went back to the shop. I was 8, so I was small enough to duck behind shelves without looking too suspicious. I reached over to the figurine and hid it in my Mickey Mouse hat. I looked over to the shopkeeper. He was busy with a customer. The other customers didn't notice. I thought I got away with it, until I noticed far out of the door, there was a mascot facing my direction. At first I thought he saw me, but in my mind I figured he couldn't have. I reasoned that the visibility in those things were terrible, and that he was probably just facing the store because he was trying to attract new customers in. When I walked past, he simply turned his head as I made my way back to my parents. He made no attempts to confront me. Past then, my memory fades. I simply went back to being a kid in school. It wasn't until a few weeks later that I started seeing some weird things happen. It was small at first. I would be playing in the schoolyard. Sometimes I would see the top of 2 black domes hiding behind a wall. Before slipping down out of sight, I would peek over to see what it was, and see nothing, with nowhere anything could hide. I tried being faster. However, I could never catch a full glimpse of the thing. There was one thing I could piece together though, based on all the parts I'd seen hiding. It was definitely a Mickey Mouse mascot. From then on, I was actively scared of anything Disney. Other kids would have their Disney toys, and I would shy away. They would bring up the Disney movie they saw the night before, and I would try to turn the conversation to another topic. I got rid of anything I had that was remotely Disney, anything to ease my mind and erase the trauma I had experienced. It never worked, but it helped. After that, things calmed down. I feel I would be close to seeing something disturbing, but it'd be out of sight as soon as my eyes focused. Still though, it never eased the paranoia, something that haunted my every day. I felt I was getting close to forgetting all of this, and living with the residing feeling after that traumatic event until in high school, when my best friend's birthday was coming up. He decided to organize a Disney trip and bring 2 friends, one of those kids that had parents who could afford to do such a grand gesture. I tried to deny the invitation, but he was my best friend and wouldn't take no for an answer. I tried getting my parents to pull me out, but they thought I was just nervous about the flight. So it wasn't long until I was boarding a flight to my literal nightmare. The group consisted of my best friend, one of his friends, his parents, and me. As soon as we settled in, we were off to have our grand adventure. It didn't take long until we split up to do our own things for a bit, with a time and place to meet up afterwards. I strolled around the park, trying to mind my own business and avoid the mascots. It hadn't been so long that I was ready to let down my guard in front of them, despite the friendly setting. It was odd, but every time I walked past a mascot, I swear they would briefly drop what they were doing, whether they were promoting merchandise or talking to a kid, and just stare at me as I passed. They just turned their heads slowly, their novelty-sized eyes glaring at me, cold and dead. At night I tried to feel safe. I locked my door, tucked under my blanket, and tried to sleep the night away. However, I couldn't. The light seeping in through the open curtain perturbed me, and briefly reminded me of that night so long ago. As I grabbed each side to draw them shut, I noticed something in the distance. Standing in the middle of the grounds, completely in the open, was a mascot. It was Mickey, just standing there. If it wasn't so far away, I could have sworn it was looking at my window. I stared at it a bit. It was just glaring, unmoving, disturbing. My heart started to race. I was scared to look away. But eventually I developed a resolve and pulled the curtain shut as hard as I could. I raced to my bed and wrapped myself up so tight that any childish fears couldn't penetrate. And I slept to the gentle sound of something soft brushing my window, and what I fear now was heavy breathing. In the morning I woke up exhausted. My friends, on the other hand, were sprightly awake and ready for a day of action. Obviously I tried bringing it up the night before, but you can never fully convey anything as simple as a mascot standing unmoving in a theme park without getting the simple answers. It was probably just an empty costume left out. It was probably a mascot on break. I was probably just dreaming it. I stayed alert for the rest of the trip, pretending to enjoy the place around my friends and the parents, and keeping a low profile while alone. It felt like an eternity, but I made it home in one piece. I want to say things calmed down from here, but they didn't. It got worse. The mascot that haunted my childhood seemingly stopped bothering to hide. I would catch it just standing out in the open, taunting me with its presence. When my parents drove me to school, I would catch glimpses of Mickey facing the direction of the car between alleys. While out shopping, it'd be standing behind a moving crowd, slowly holding out its hand, before fading away behind the hustle. The worst was at night. If I forgot to close my curtains, I would just see that horrifically sized head just staring at me through the window. I couldn't call someone, why bother? It'd just slip away as soon as they came. Trying to take a picture ended in the same result. A running motif over time was his hand. I would sometimes see him either raising it, palm side up, or it would already be held out, almost as if it wanted something. It didn't take me long to think of a solution. The figurine. I frantically rummaged through my old childhood items, toys, books, and the like. Nothing Disney. Of course, I got rid of everything as a child when I was terrified for my life. I no doubt had gotten rid of the figurine. I was mortified at this thought. My next idea was a simple one. While at the school library, I googled the exchange rate of the euro for the year I went to Disney and scraped up my pocket money. I had the right amount, so I did something any other kid would think is crazy. I left it out on my doorstep. I know that anyone could take it, but if it was gone in the morning, I'd at least have some hope that it would appease this nightmare. I left the money on the doorstep under a note apologizing for what I did. I placed a small rock on it to keep it from blowing away, and I went to bed. That night I did something that terrified me as a kid. I slept with the curtains open. I wanted to wait until it was late and see if that horrific icon would be staring at me. I woke up in the dark hours of the morning. I took a few deep breaths for courage, closed my eyes with a quick prayer, and spun around to check. Nothing. Was it over? Had I managed to end years of torment? I walked over to my window to see if there were any signs of the thing, gaining steady confidence with each step. I was excited to live a life without flinching at every possible hiding spot, excited to leave the house confidently, excited to have my independence back. This all ended when I stared into my garden. There it was, staring as it did on my second trip to Disneyland. I stared back, not only in horror but sadness that my newfound confidence and excitement was crushed so quickly. As I looked on, it raised its hand, and that's when I realized something. Maybe it's not holding its hand out for the item back or any kind of repayment. Maybe it's holding its hand out for me? But to be honest, I'm tired. It's been years of living in fear, always expecting to see that oversized head with its eerily large eyes. I've tried everything, even offering the equivalent amount of money I stole as a child, but nothing worked. Now, I'm left with one crazy idea that sends chills down my spine, but also brings forth a twisted curiosity. Invite the mascot in. My heart pounds in my chest as I reach out and unlock the front door. I take a deep breath, push it open, and step aside. The silence is deafening. I feel the world stand still as I wait for the inevitable. The iconic Disney character looms at the doorway. I can't see its eyes behind those cartoon-like ones, but I can feel its gaze on me. Without a word, I gesture for it to come in, and to my surprise, it does. It steps inside the house, moving with a surreal fluidity that seems at odds with the oversized costume. It's in my house. This thing, this presence that's haunted me for years. There's an odd sense of relief, even though I'm still scared out of my mind. In a slow, steady motion, the mascot put its hand out for me, just as it did in the garden, and every time before. I don't know what prompted me to do so, but for the first time, I took his hand. Slowly, he led the way upstairs, and I followed, our footsteps echoing eerily in the still night. We reached my bedroom and he pointed to the bed, the absurdity of the situation not lost on me. It just stands there, a silent sentinel. He let go of my hand and he crawled into my bed, tucking himself under the covers. He gestured to me, the word join hanging in the air between us. I stood silent, struggling to comprehend, but being this far in, I complied. And there we were, me and a Disney mascot, spooning under the blanket in my bed. Its giant gloved hand rests lightly on my waist, its presence both comforting and bizarrely absurd. It's quiet, completely quiet, except for the beating of my own heart. In that moment, everything becomes clear. The figure didn't want revenge or restitution. It didn't seek to scare me or harm me. It wanted contact, comfort, connection. Maybe it was trying to convey a lesson, that consequences follow actions, but forgiveness is also possible. I lay there, wrapped in the arms of my childhood fear, finally at peace. I drift off to sleep, a new chapter beginning. My tormentor turned protector, my haunted past becoming my surreal present. It's not the resolution I'd ever expected, but somehow, it's what I've been waiting for. But when I woke up the next morning, the mascot was gone. My house was eerily silent. I checked downstairs and called for him outside, but nobody was there to be found. No creepy face peeking from around the bushes, no thick matted gloves gripping corners. Nothing. And to be honest, part of me felt sad. I felt that I had lost a friend, a peculiar one at best, but still, a friend. It's been a month since that encounter in my bedroom with the mascot. Wherever that thing is, whatever they're doing, whoever they're stalking now, I hope it's with good intentions. I hope a lesson is learned. But since the start of this whole ordeal, one thing has been unignorable. A nagging feeling, a feeling of unease and concern. Is this the purpose of the mascots at Disneyland?